Well, scattered light to moderate rain showers moving across the middle part of North Alabama and into Middle Tennessee, but some thunderstorms developing out to the west. Could have some gusty winds, but the coverage of those a lot less than the rain we see here across the metro area. More on your forecast is coming up. It is 4 o'clock. The news starts now.
WAFF 48, your first alert station. You're watching WAFF 48 News Now.
Music icon Prince is dead today. While fans mourn his death, investigators are trying to determine what happened.
Plus, the state's education budget is now headed to the governor's desk. We'll have a live report from Montgomery.
And we'll tell you about a major announcement regarding Volkswagen. Fans are mourning the death of pop superstar Prince. He was found dead at his home in suburban Minneapolis.
You are looking at live pictures from Paisley Park Studios, where deputies say they found Prince unresponsive in an elevator. They quickly started CPR, but it was too late. Investigators are now working to determine the cause of death. WFF 48 News anchor Mark Thornhill joins us now live from the Alert Center with more. Mark?
Yeah, Elizabeth, Prince's publicist confirmed his death this afternoon. He was 57 years old. Last week, Prince was hospitalized briefly after his plane was forced to make an emergency landing in Illinois. His representatives say he had been fighting off the flu. Prince, widely acclaimed, one of the most inventive musicians of his era. He rose to fame in the late 70s and was probably the most popular in the 80s and 90s. Had hit titles like Little Red Corvette, Purple Rain, Diamonds and Pearls, so many hits. Shortly after the death of Prince, fans and celebrities took to Twitter to express their sadness. No word yet on the exact cause of death here. Funeral arrangements are still pending. And by the way, if you had forgotten, Prince held a concert at the VBC here in Huntsville in 1998. Kim?
Yep, I was at that concert and it was fabulous. Inside the legislature, lawmakers have approved an education budget.
All it needs now is the governor's signature to finalize the state's largest budget since 2008. WFF 48 political reporter Michael Downa is in Montgomery. Michael, this budget passed overwhelmingly.
Yeah, that's right. The vote in the House was 100-0, and it was almost as popular up in the Senate. Now all it needs is the governor's signature to give teachers their first major pay raise since 2008 and provide education with the most money it has seen this decade. Now, Governor Bentley says he will sign the budget, and it's not a surprise as this budget provides funding to almost every single agency. The one thing missing, well, major opposition.
When you see, I think, broad support in the legislature and broad support in the education community, I think that tells you that we hit the priorities and we hit the needs. We hit them to the greatest extent we could. And so I think that's why you don't hear a lot of opposition right now. I hope that continues because I believe this is a positive budget.
One thing lawmakers could not fit in this year's budget is a retiree bonus, which they hope to actually fit as one of their top priorities next year. Reporting from Montgomery, I'm Michael Downer for WAFF 48 News Now.
In other news inside the legislature, there's now an approved revision in the state's prison bill. Governor Bentley wants an $800 million bond issue to build 3 regional mega prisons and replace Julia Tutwiler Prison for Women. Lawmakers also looked at approval of a separate bill to raise auto title fees by $13 to help pay for a new prison. The House is expected to vote next week. The Senate Tourism and Marketing Committee approved a bare-bones constitutional amendment that would allow you to vote on a state lottery. However, it provides very few details. Senator Jim McClendon says he'll work with other lawmakers to add more details to the bill, like where lottery funds would be allocated. He says it'll be finished before it's brought to the Senate floor. For the latest on what's happening in the Alabama legislature, log on to WAFF.com, click on Alabama Politics. You can find it under the News tab.
Tracking a variety of weather, we've got the steady light to moderate showers across the metro area right now. As you see on our Huntsville Alpha camera, 64 degrees, but it's not going to stay this way for much longer. Let's take a look at the radar now. As we go to our milliwatt First Alert live Doppler radar, you can see from Athens through Madison out to Harvest and Monrovia. That's where the more steady rain is. This is all tracking to the north. Scottsboro, spotty showers over there, even the low clouds and drizzle at times. But we start to break things up as we go farther to the west, where we do have some isolated thunderstorms. So as we get in a little bit closer here on our milliwatt radar, Fayetteville, Hazel Green down to Huntsville, at least the next 30 minutes look awfully wet. Athens, looks like the rain's going to come to an end for temporarily, we'll call it, out just to the west. But these are the thunderstorms that have been developing, tracking to the east, perhaps some small hail and a wind gust up to about 35 miles an hour. That's going to be about it. After this, we should see a break in the showers and thunderstorm activity until we get into the late morning hours tomorrow as the front actually starts to move through. And then we focus on a really nice weekend. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. Here's your evening commute forecast. Scattered showers and isolated thunderstorm through 7 o'clock. Temperatures more like the 60s than the 70s.
Several students are being questioned right now in Delaware after a classmate's beating death in a school restroom. At least 2 students ganged up on the 10th grader at Howard High School in Wilmington just as classes were starting. The girl was flown to the hospital but later died from her injuries. At least 2 students were taken from the high school to police headquarters for more questioning.
A Florence man faces charges in connection to a business burglary early this month. Police arrested Leontrell Jackson. He's charged with burglary, theft from a public building, and possession of stolen property. Investigators say Jackson stole items from a business on Patton Street 3 weeks ago. A Florence man faces domestic violence charges for allegedly attacking his pregnant ex-girlfriend. Police say Philip Thompson picked the woman up and threw her onto the bed, then pulled her to the floor and covered her mouth to keep her from screaming before eventually letting her go. Thompson is charged with third-degree domestic violence and domestic violence, strangulation, suffocation.
An update now on a missing priest from Florida. Authorities have identified a body found in Georgia as Reverend Rene Robert. Authorities have charged Steve Murray with his murder. He's accused of killing the priest earlier this month. Investigators say Robert died from several gunshot wounds. Authorities say Robert had been helping Murray, who was recently released from jail. Murray is being held without bond. Queen Elizabeth is celebrating a milestone birthday today. We'll tell you how she spent her day coming up.
And Volkswagen and the federal government have struck a deal. We'll tell you all about it.
And we'll check back in with Brad for an update on your forecast. We'll be right back.